had to pull that together. Had to make sure I get the proper title for the day, y'all. We got to dress on first before we start reading. Everybody enjoy their Sabbath, the last day of Feast of Unleavened Bread. Seems like we've been gone a long time, y'all. I missed y'all. Yeah. This weekend has been pretty eventful. I'll share some with y'all before we get started. Some of y'all probably already seen. Completely blew my mind. Fine. Good morning. Good morning. Top of the day, beautiful people. Okay, I got this done. All right, y'all. Okay. Well, happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Josiah, shalom. Belinda Brown. Hey, Auntie. Aliyah. We're going to address that. Aliyah, what you just said before we get started here, right? Because, okay, let me do the date first, and then we'll talk about it real quick before we get started, because because there's a lot of new subscribers because of a video that I did this weekend, Tiffany. You should look at it. It's over 11,000 now. That's why I'm about to, I want to start this first, right? Because over these last 2 days, there's almost 100 new subscribers here simply because of that video. I'm gonna tell you what I learned this weekend about that video and what happened and everything all behind it, right? Okay, so it's Monday, y'all. April the 5th, 2021, day 119 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 788. Yes, 788. We've been here 788 days. Actually, more days than that because we don't count, but we do count the Sabbaths. It's just not in the consecutive day count, but it's counted in a year. Sort of like how the moon is counted throughout the seasons, right? But the 788 days are the days that we're present reading. The Sabbath days are not counted because if they were, we'd be well over 1,000 days here, right? But we keep in command to rest one day of the week. Shalom, Joanne. Shalom. Good morning. Okay, y'all. So we're going to be reading 2 Samuel 10, 11, and 12. Then we're going to hop over to the Legends of the Jews, or what I like to call Legends of the Hebrews. Okay, so real quick. This may take about 5 to 7 minutes to explain, hopefully. Okay, so some of you, because I also posted a video on Facebook as well, and I entitled it 3 Days of Darkness. Is this really going to happen April the 4th through April the 7th, 2021. Now I'm explaining this, and I'm going to explain why I did the video and why I took such a long time doing the video and why I took my time putting all the references in there and reading through all the references that I have come across until this day. I'm going to tell you why. I probably have a little bit more compassion with people than most. Why? Because I went through that whole friggin' rigmarole of 3 Days of Darkness a few years ago, right? Now imagine, I had already stepped away from the church because I was sick of the shenanigans and the foolishness and the fear tactics and all of that, right? And I said, I refuse to raise my children in this crap. And we walked away. We walked away from the four-door church, but we did not walk away from the Most High, right? And I made a decision. I said, Father, if I'm going to learn about you, it's going to be me and you, right? And I get what they teach you in church, how you going to learn, let somebody be sent to you and all this. But I understood, first of all, that there is somebody out there And I'll call him Yah, like the creator of heaven and earth, right? And just like he's been talking to me ever since I was a little girl and kind of lead me and help me, even though I just thought maybe they were coincidences or just you looked up or you got that right. I realized that no, because the way this has been orchestrated, there has to be a God, right? So I said all that to say, now mind you, I wasn't just fresh out the church when I came across this whole 3 days of darkness, but I hadn't been away long enough to where all those fear tactics that you learn while you're in there were completely out of me. And I would say I'm a lot more bold now. Some things still kind of trip me up real close. Yeah, you almost got me again. No, you will not pull me back into that crap, right? So you got to check your emotions real quick, right? Shayla, hey girl, hey, great rising. So listen, now let me tell you, new subscribers, thank you for joining, for subscribing, but let me just tell you what this channel, why I'm explaining all this. I'm gonna tell you what this is about. So this will be your first day here watching this since the video that I did on Friday, right? So now you can make the decision whether you want to stay or whether you want to unsubscribe right now. But why I did it was, so a few years back, I was online on YouTube, right? And I don't even know how it popped up, but it popped up in my feed. Y'all know how y'all be on YouTube and they just come recommending stuff or whatever. And I happened to click on it because it said 3 days of darkness coming. I'm like, what? And of course, I was familiar with the Exodus story, right? So I'm like, okay, they must be talking about, Exodus and everything, which is a spin off of ancient events, right? So I listened to it. And then there was something, this 3 days of darkness. Man, this a few years ago now. We're in 2021. This was definitely before I started the actual reading through 3 years ago, right? So it's maybe almost 4 years ago, right? But it was popping up, 3 days of darkness. Oh, you gotta be ready. This gonna happen. I'm like, what? I ain't never heard this before. What? Wait, what now? So I'm now. They done pulled me in with this garbage. And so now I'm going, I was like, oh my gosh, is this really a thing? Oh, wait a minute. I got to warn my family. Mind you, I'm trying to detox from all the fear tactics that I learned into the church while they preaching hellfire and brimstone, preaching you down in hell. Like if you make one mistake, Yahuwah is going to send you to the depths of the fiery hell with Satan himself, right? There's a seat reserved for you right there. So after getting over all those fear tactics and stuff, and mind you, I grew up and I had a spirit of fear already that was deep inside of me already because I grew up watching scary movies. I thought it was scary. I mean, I didn't think it was so scary when I was growing up. I used to laugh at it, but I didn't realize how much of a hold it had on me. I'm sorry. I just caught myself doing this. Y'all, somebody, I saw myself do this. My hand movements. Now I'm mindful of my hand movements because some girl down there time I watch her, she throwing up Luciferian hand signals. I'm like, what? Really? Let me go back and watch my video. I just saw myself do it again because I move my hand so much when I talk. So I had to be mindful. Not that I really care, but that thing right there, that was a prime example of what I'm talking about. Fear tactics and stuff in the church and thinking everything is of the devil, right? So I do my best to be honest, straightforward with everybody. Let you know, look, this, I found this to be crap. Y'all go check this. Here's all the resources I found. If you get something else, you come share it with me, right? So, but that threw me for a loop. I'm like, you know what? I respond. I'm saying, really? I didn't realize I was throwing up Luciferian hand signals. Let me go back and watch my own video so I can check it myself, right? So when I did that, that comment triggered me from yesterday. But so now I'm Googling and looking up the 3 days of darkness. And when you go looking for it, there is no end of all these videos where people are talking about this 3 days of darkness. Imagine. I had never heard about this. There are some things that you're only going to hear while you're on social media because nobody else in the world is worried about this, right? And so I started looking it up and looking into it. Now, mind you, when it first started getting to me, I didn't say, okay, where did this originate? Oh my gosh, who said this? All I know that it was prophets up here or people that have been known to give accurate prophecies, they're promoting this 3 days of darkness. I'm like, okay, well, this must be true. Father, oh my gosh, let me check my life. So I'm now, here's the story real quick. If you haven't watched my video and you don't know what it is, they tell you that the 3 days of darkness that was in the ancient days when Yahuwah brought his people out, that it was going to happen again. And this time you need to go in your house, you need to cover up your windows because the darkness is going to fall, and it's going to be the darkness from the pit of hell, and it's going to be demons outside there, and they're going to be mimicking the voices of your family members and stuff, and don't open the door for them, right? Now let me tell you how much this, now I laugh at it. I'm not laughing at people who are falling for it, but I'm laughing at it because I think about myself and how it caught me, and I was panic stricken, right? And so now I'm panic stricken, thinking that this is something credible because people that are accurate with prophecies and stuff, they are saying this and they're repeating this, and everybody, they say, oh yeah, you got to go get these blessed candles. You got to make sure you cover, if you ain't got nothing to cover, dark to cover your windows, use black trash bags and all this stuff. So let me tell y'all what I did. I did the food, just like a lot of people that are still running rampant, searching out this topic, looking for the 3 days of darkness, right? I darn near had a heart attack, panic attack all together when this thing literally grabbed a hold of my soul, right? I went out. I'm looking for blessed candles. I'm Googling, what is blessed candles? How do we get blessed candles? Am I supposed to bless them? Is a priest supposed to bless them? Is a pope, a pastor? Who do I take these candles to be blessed? Right? So I'm looking, it was like, oh, you got to get them from here and stuff. And then I'm like, oh, you can order them from here. I'm like, and something began to I'm like, wait a minute. Something is wrong about this, but I'm still running around panic stricken. And so y'all, our business has an account with Uline, right? I went to Uline. I ordered contractor black trash bags, the biggest ones I could find. I ordered duct tape so I can make sure I tape up the windows. Not only that, but I made sure we got blanket covers like our furniture company. We cover product when we're moving it, when we unbox it so we don't damage it. We cover it with these thick blanket wraps, right, when we're transporting it. I made sure I had a few in my truck. I went to the warehouse, took some of these supplies to the warehouse, and I'm panic stricken for a few weeks about this thing. And I'm like, Father, why didn't you tell me this was coming? Right? So all this time I'm thinking, I'm like, Father, is this for real? But just in case these people telling the truth, I'm gonna make sure we okay. Listen, I'm sending the freaking 3 days of darkness videos to family members. I'm telling my husband about it. He look at me like, girl, have you lost your goddamn mind? What? He listened for a second. He was like, wait a minute, hold on. I know we won't go to church no more, but didn't Pastor Campbell say? His daughter may be here. He said, didn't Pastor Campbell say? And this happened in years. He said, well, didn't Pastor Campbell say, if anything is a driving force that's causing your emotions to run out of whack, you might want to stop and think about it. I'm like, he did say that, didn't he? He said, you a mess. I'm like, but I don't want us to die. Because we know, I said, but babe, listen, look, if you at the warehouse, because doing the jobs, he had working from the warehouse most of the time if you're not on the job. And I'm back here at the house working from the house. I went to the warehouse, y'all. This shipment came in the black trash bags. I got them stocked up here at the house. I got rolls of duct tape. I done went to the warehouse. I done made my husband a bug out room in the men's bathroom in our warehouse. I moved a 2-drawer lateral file in there so I can stock it up with the 3 days of darkness supplies. We got you a flashlight. I know they said this is not gonna work. No man-made lighting is gonna work. You need blessed candles. I put the flashlight. I got some blankets in there. I got duct tape. I said, listen, babe, if you happen to be here, I said they saying it, but it could be true. I mean, who can do anything? I was saying God can do anything he want to do. I said, but if you here, listen, if the darkness should happen to descend and we are parted, you are here and me and the kids at the house. I said, just know, me and the kids, we're going to be okay. I know what to do. I said, but you don't try and leave this warehouse. I said, throw up these blankets on the windows, take them up. I don't care if you nail them up, but cover the windows. I said, and if you hear us standing outside this door, calling, babe, let us in, don't open the door because it's not going to be us. It's going to be demons, right? I said, and once you do that, you go in the bathroom and you close the door, you lock it. Right? I said, I got some snacks in there. Everything you was going to need is in that drawer. Y'all, when I tell you I wigged out, I wigged out. That's why I took such a long time doing this video to explain to you people how this false prophecy started and how it will take hold and grab your emotions and shake you silly. Like you become bereft of all your wisdom and all your common sense, right? And that's what happened to me, right? After I did all that, I done called my sister and I pulled her in on this garbage. She's like, girl, what? What's gonna happen? And it just, and I can see how it just spreads like a wildfire out of control. Not only am I now acting like a nutcase, I done pulled my family together, scaring the living daylights out of them about this 3 days of darkness, and we might hear demons outside. Listen, but we might hear it in the voice of Daddy, because when no Daddy, he may be at the warehouse or out on the job. I say, if you hear anybody's voice, it ain't gonna be Aunt Alicia, it ain't gonna be TT, it ain't gonna be Grandma, it ain't gonna be Nani, it ain't gonna be Elijah. That's our oldest son. He got his own house. It ain't gonna be none of them. I said, because you got to remember, this darkness is going to be so dark that nobody can drive in the first place. So it don't make common sense for them to leave where they at. They ain't going to be able to leave. That's going to be demons trying to lure us outside of our house, right? Listen, let me tell you how foolish this is. I done called my sister. Now we strategizing on the phone. Girl, okay, so when this happen, we don't know when it's going to happen. We just got to be on guard for it. We just got to keep watching for it. We got to keep watching. Okay, Pam, what we going to do? Okay, so if we're home, we got little children, what we going to do? I said, girl, I don't know. I ordered headphones, big headphones for all the small kids, just in case this descends, just in case we need, look, not only did I order big headphones, but you know how you go in factories where they have loud noise, they got the little styrofoam earplugs. Uncle James Brown, Nikki, Betswabu, good morning. You know how you get them and you stick them in your ears? I ordered some of them so we could take these and stick them inside the little kids here, my little children, and then put the headphones on them, right? And then we practice the song. So, okay, we're just gonna sing hallelujah. Or, you know, if we hear noise, we hear screaming and stuff outside, we ain't gonna go to the door, let nobody in. We ain't gonna save nobody. We're not gonna be heroes on this night. Like, seriously. We was a complete nutcase. Well, I was a complete nutcase, passing on this foolishness, infecting other people. That's how serious I know this is. Like I said, that's why I took the time to make the long, elaborate video, because I'm compassionate with you. I can sympathize, I can empathize with you about this crap that's going on, because I was taken by it a few years ago, right? Listen, they spent this money on all this stuff, trying to prepare, stocking up on different things and everything. This is a song we gonna sing. We didn't pick the room in the house, the innermost room in the house, where we can all keep ourselves. I'm like, okay. And then I'm just like, oh, maybe I need to go on a fast, Father, because this is scary. Like, and I'm like, this is too much. This is too much. My husband think I'm a freaking nutcase, and he like, girl, ugh. He just looked at me and walked out the house, right? And I'm like, okay, that wasn't a good sign. My husband shouldn't be treating me like that. Let me think about this. Okay, so I'm like, Father, look, you got to help me. I said, is this real? Is this not? This is not. Go look this up. And so I started looking. I'm like, okay. So when I started looking this up, I'm like, what? And so that's what I read out on the in the video. I go through and I pull it up, how this prophecy, this false prophecy that's running rampant, is a spin off of ancient events. People saying that this is going to come back. Even Israel, true Israel, is falling for this crap. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. There are a lot of, I'm telling you, when Yahuwah said he was going to give a strong delusion, I'm telling you, Christianity is the strong delusion, my G. It will have you, and this is not the only thing that have you all over your emotions, acting like a freaking nutcase all the time. But you can't see that when you're in the midst of all that garbage all the time. When did we actually step away from the church? I want to say it was Joshua was born in 2010. I know I took him a couple times. So I want to say 2012. I was like, yep, this is it. We can't do this anymore. And so back, I was like, Father, if we're going to find you, we're going to have to find you outside of all this foolishness. I said, they're doing too much. And by that time, we had already progressed into the Hebrew roots. So we weren't going to like the Christian Sunday services anymore. We was actually going to the Shabbat services. They was having them on Saturday, right? And sometime Friday. But it was like garbage on top of garbage. And it's like, y'all are doing the same thing. Y'all just changing the name of what y'all call him. And just it's like, it was too much, right? And I was like, I cannot do this. I said, if you're real, I need the truth. I'm going to find it. But these people, maybe it's the ones I've come across. Maybe they just didn't have it, right? So I'm just like, we cannot do this, right? But I tell you, that's probably been the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life. That was the best decision I could have ever made. It gave me time. Remember that video on my 3 days of darkness? I talked about that filthy, dirty cesspool. I was in there. I was inside of that filthy, dirty cesspool. And I was really searching for you, who I'm like, can this be real? This can't be real, right? And you know, I was one of the ones where he made an opening for and pushed me out, right? And gave me a chance to detox and get cleaned up. Now, I need you to pay attention with a clear, focused, level-headed mind. Pay attention to this stuff, right? And when I started reading things for myself and not actually going through and reading things how people taught me to read it based on improper teaching and false doctrine and twisting of scriptures, I began to see it in a whole different light, right? I'm like, wait a minute. So they teach us this, but this is definitely not what you say. Matter of fact, the Bible don't even say this, but they got their Bible open and they're teaching this, but this is not what the Bible says. Like if you read it, this is what it says, but they looking in their Bible, but they saying something else. And most people don't go back and check, but I started to go back and check them. I started to check everybody because I was sick of the lies, right? And that's when I began to realize that, wait a minute, you learn about the actual character of Yahuwah through the Old Testament, right? And then I learned about how awesome and merciful he was all the way through. Well, over here they say, y'all don't go back there. He was the wrathful, vengeful God, and all the lies began to come out, began to be uncovered as I began to read. Right. So, excuse me. I said all that to say, for those of you that are here, excuse me, and you found my channel because of the 3 days of darkness video that I did, and you are truly scared out of your wits because you thought something like this was going to happen, be at peace, friends. Be at peace and know Yahuwah will not have you all over the place like this, right? He desires that you be at peace. Matter of fact, he said, I don't even take joy in destroying the wicked. That's why Yahuwah is so long suffering with everybody, right? So I know that that opening was pretty lengthy, but I wanted to say that for all those that are here, right? And now for those of you that are here and you have subscribed to the channel, let me just tell you about this channel, just in case you subscribed because you thought this channel was going to be like all the other internet prophets that's always telling dreams and visions, and we're not doing that. If I do tell a dream or something that I had, it's in relation to something that I read and I triggered it, but I don't come here thinking, oh, let me tell them this dream today and let me tell them this dream today. Nope. We're going to do exactly what they did. We're going to make sure you keep a level head. We joking, we have fun, but I'm going to make sure we keep a level head. We're going to actually read through this stuff word for word. We're going to own the information, or we're going to not own the information, but it's your choice. We're going to do it with a level head without any kind of fear or scare tactics, right? So that's what we're here to do. If you came looking for something other than that, I'm sorry. You can go ahead and unsubscribe now, right? Okay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start our reading for today, people. Like I said, it's already Monday, right? So we passed the first dark day that they said it would extend from the 4th to the 7th. And then someone will say, well, he didn't give a date. He just said it was all April. Be on watch for all of April. I'm like, this is April is going to come and go, right? Because if you're familiar with what Yahuwah says, you will realize this is not what's going to happen in these days as he awakens his people and his people begin to return to the truth of his word. He did not say he was going to do this. Some things have been sealed up to the end times, but those things are being revealed to us now, just like he told Daniel, right? He said, Daniel, close that up. We'll reveal that to them at that time, right? So we're all learning, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and start at 2 Samuel chapter 10. All right, y'all. I know, like I said, that was a long opening, so I'm gonna try and move through here fast, not too fast, but done. All right. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna bring up my shimmer. For those of you that don't know what this shimmer is, it is found. The shimmer is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. I recommend you read the whole chapter. Read all of it, but we just pull it out so we can be reminded. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the God of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our God, he is one God, and you shall love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah our God as he has commanded us. Okay, y'all, so right on over here to 2 Samuel chapter 10. Oh, wrong one. No. Okay. Okay. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hunan became king. David said, I am going to show loyalty to Hunan, just as his father Nahash was always loyal to me. So David sent ambassadors to express sympathy to Hunan about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, the Ammonite commander said to Hunan, their master, do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father? No. David has sent them to spy out the city so that they can come in and conquer it. So Hunan seized David's ambassadors and shaved off half of each man's beard, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and he sent them back to David in shame. When David heard what had happened, he sent messengers to tell the men, stay at Jericho until your beards grow out and then come back, for they felt deep shame because of their appearance. When the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, they sent and hired 20,000 Aramean foot soldiers from the lands of Beth Rehob and Zobah, 1,000 from the king of Maacah, and 12,000 from the land of Tob. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops came out and drew up their battle lines at the entrance of the city gate, while the Amorians from Zobah and Rehob and the men from Tob and Maacah positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on both the front and the rear, he chose some of Israel's elite troops and placed them under his personal command to fight the Arameans in the field. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me, Joab told his brother. And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will come and help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May Yahuwah's will be done. When Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. After the battle was over, Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized that they were no match for Israel. So when they regrouped, they were joined by additional Aramean troops summoned by Hadad-ezer from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops arrived at Helam under the command of Shobach, the commander of Hadad-ezer's forces. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and led the army to Helam. The Arameans positioned themselves in battle formation and fought against David. But again, the Arameans fled from the Israelites. This time, David's forces killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers, including Shobach, the commander of their army. When all the kings allied with Hadad-ezer saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they surrendered to Israel and became their subjects. After that, the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites. Next chapter. 2 Samuel chapter 11, David and Bathsheba. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of his bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. Now, if y'all remember, we actually read past this part in the Legends of the Jews, and we know that that window he noticed Bathsheba out was a window that had just recently been broken, because she had always been there, but he had never, up until that point, seen her. And y'all get the rest of the story. If you missed it, go back. I'll see if I can find that video and post it so you can hear the full details of what they didn't canonize in here. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, she sent David a message saying, "I'm pregnant." Then David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent him to David. When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and the army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, "Go home and relax." David even sent a gift to Uriah after he had left the palace, but Uriah didn't go home. He slept that night at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. When David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked him, "What's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" Uriah replied, "The ark and the enemies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and my master's men are camping in the open fields. How could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear that I would never do such a thing." "Well, stay here today," David told him, "and tomorrow you may return to the army." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then, he couldn't get Uriah to go home to his wife. Again, he slept at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, "Station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is the fiercest. Then pull back so that he will be killed." Joab assigned Uriah to a spot close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting. And when the enemy soldiers came out to the city to fight, Uriah the Hittite was killed along with several of the Israelite soldiers. Then Joab sent a battle report to David. He told his messenger, "Report all the news of the battle to the king," but he might get angry and ask, "Why did the troops go so closely to the city? Didn't they know that there would be shooting from the walls? Wasn't Abimelech, the son of Gideon, killed at Thebez by a woman who threw a millstone down on him from the wall? Why would you go so close to the wall?" Then tell him Uriah the Hittite was killed too. So the messengers went to Jerusalem and gave a complete report to David. "The enemy came out against us in the open fields," he said, and as we chased them back to the city gate, the archers on the wall shot arrows at us. Some of the king's men were killed, including Uriah the Hittite. "Well, tell Joab not to be discouraged," David said. "The sword devours this one today and that one tomorrow. Fight harder next time and conquer the city." David was he thought He got out of his little indiscretion. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the period of mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son, but Yahuwah was displeased with what David had done. All right, y'all, last chapter for today before we hop over to the legends of the Jews. So Yahuwah sent Nathan the prophet to tell David this story. There were two men in a certain town. One was rich and one was poor. The rich man owned a great many sheep and cattle. The poor man owned nothing but one little lamb he had bought. He raised that little lamb and it grew up with his children. It ate from the man's own plate and drank from his cup. He cuddled it in his arms like a baby daughter. One day a guest arrived at the home of the rich man, but instead of killing an animal from his own flock or herd, he took the poor man's lamb and killed it and prepared it for his guests. David was furious. As surely as Yahuwah lives, he vowed, any man who would do such a thing deserves to die. He must repay 4 lambs to the poor man for the one he stole for having no pity. Then Nathan said to David, you are that man. Yahuwah, the God of Israel, says, I anointed you king of Israel and saved you from the power of Saul. I gave you your master's house and his wives and the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. And if that had not been enough, I would have given you much, much more. Why then have you despised the word of Yahuwah and done this terrible deed? For you have murdered Uriah the Hittite with the sword of the Ammonites and stolen his wife. From this time on, your family will live by the sword because you have despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. This is what Yahuwah says. Because of what you have done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to another man before your very eyes, and he will go to bed with them in public view. You did it secretly, but I will make this happen to you openly in the sight of all of Israel. Then David confessed to Nathan, I have sinned against Yahuwah. Nathan replied, yes, but Yahuwah has forgiven you, and you won't die for this sin. Nevertheless, because you have shown utter contempt for the word of Yahuwah by doing this, your child will die. And a lot of times, sometimes we think when we sin, we just like, oops, I'm sorry, forgive me. You didn't thought about it. You didn't premeditate it and went all the way through. You didn't stop and think, well, maybe I shouldn't do this before you actually carried out this deed that you premeditated in your mind to do. You carried it out and you didn't repent until after the prophet or somebody came to you. Oh, you caught, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yahuwah has forgiven you, but nevertheless, there are still repercussions to your actions, right? David learned that the hard way. May we learn from his mistakes. After Nathan returned to his home, Yahuwah sent a deadly illness to the child of David and Uriah's wife. David begged Yahuwah to spare the child. He went without food and lay all night on the bare ground. The elders of his household pleaded with him to get up and eat with them, but he refused. Then on the 7th day, the child died. David's advisors were afraid to tell him. He wouldn't listen to reason while the child was ill, they said. What a drastic thing will he do when we tell him that the child is dead? When David saw them whispering, he realized what had happened. Is the child dead? He asked. Yes, they replied. He is dead. Then David got up from the ground, washed himself, put on lotions, and changed his clothes. He went to the tabernacle and worship Yahuwah. After that, he returned to the palace and was served food and ate. His advisors were amazed. We don't understand you, they told him. While the child was still living, you wept and refused to eat. But now that the child is dead, you have stopped your mourning and are eating again. David replied, I fasted and wept while the child was alive. For I said, perhaps Yahuwah will be gracious to me and let the child live. But why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him one day, but he cannot return to me. Then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and David named him Solomon. Yahuwah loved the child and sent word through Nathan the prophet that they should name him Jedediah, which means beloved of the Lord, as Yahuwah had commanded. And we also know that they also give a little more detail on that as well in here, right? Meanwhile, Joab was fighting against Rabbah, the capital of Ammon, and he captured the royal fortifications. Joab sent messengers to tell David, I have fought against Rabbah and captured its water supply. Now bring the rest of the army and capture the city. Otherwise, I will capture it and get credit for the victory. So David gathered the rest of the army and went to Rabbah, and he fought against it and captured it. David removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on his own. The crown was made of gold and set with gems, and it weighed 75 pounds. David took a vast amount of plunder from the city. He also made slaves of the people of Rabbah and forced them to labor with saws, iron picks, iron axes, and work in the brick kilns. This is how he dealt with the people of all the Ammonite towns. Then David and all the army returned to Jerusalem. All right, beautiful people. So that was our reading from the Canonized Bible. Let's go ahead and hop on over here to the Legends of the Jews, picking up on page 461, where we left off with Hezekiah. All right, y'all. Hold on. Read that. Oh, yeah, right there. Okay. While the northern kingdom was rapidly descending into the pit of destruction, a mighty upward impulse was given to Judah, both spiritually and materially, by its king Hezekiah. In his infancy, the king had been destined as a sacrifice to Molech. His mother saved him from death only by rubbing him with the blood of a salamander, which made him fireproof. Now, if y'all remember this, when we first started this all the way back in volume 1, where we learned a little bit more detail about creation and some of the things that were created and how doing right before the flood happened, some of the things that they were doing and some of the smart remarks they were giving to Noah. They said, well, if a flood comes, we know how to save ourselves from that, because they knew about the blood of the salamander, right? So all those things, but it also made a mention of Hezekiah's mother at a future date would be able to save the future king Hezekiah from the fire because of that, right? And what the people of Noah's day didn't realize was that the water that was coming up, they didn't realize. They just thought it was just going to be regular water, but they didn't realize that Yahuwah was going to cause that water to pass through Gehenna, right? And it came up hot and bubbling. They weren't prepared for that, right? They said, a flood, we can handle a flood, but they didn't realize it was going to be a hot flood, right? Okay. There's some other things that wasn't completely canonized. All right. Let me go back up here. While the northern kingdom was rapidly descending into the pit of destruction, a mighty upward impulse was given to Judah, both spiritually and materially, by its king Hezekiah. In his infancy, the king had been destined as a sacrifice to Molech. His mother had saved him from death only by rubbing him with the blood of a salamander, which made him fireproof. In every respect, he was the opposite of his father. As the latter is counted among the worst of sinners, so Hezekiah is counted among the most pious of Israel. His first act as king is evidence that he held the honor of Yahuwah to be his chief concern, important beyond all else. He refused to accord his father regal obsequies. I think that's what that says. I may have pronounced that wrong. Forgive me. His remains were buried as though he had been poor and of plebeian rank. Impious as he was, Ahaz deserved nothing more dignified. Yahuwah had himself made it known to Hezekiah by a sign that his father was to have no consideration paid to him. On the day of the dead king's funeral, daylight lasted but 2 hours, and his body had to be interred when the earth was enveloped in darkness, right? So remember I told you in my video, I mentioned before that there was different types of darknesses that came that are not mentioned. So there are many that happened throughout history, even some in like the 1900s and stuff, right? Okay. But we know that what they're talking about is not what it is, right? Okay. Throughout this reign, just got to learn how to separate truth from error, people. Throughout his reign, Hezekiah devoted himself mainly to the task of dispelling the ignorance of the Torah, which his father had caused. While Ahaz had forbidden the study of the law, Hezekiah's orders read, "Who does not occupy himself with Torah? Who does not occupy himself with the Torah renders himself subject to the death penalty. The academies closed under Ahaz were kept open day and night under Hezekiah. The king himself supplied the oil needed for illuminating purposes. Gradually, under this system, a generation grew up so well trained that one could search the land from Dan even to Beersheba and not find a single ignoramus. May Yahuwah return that same learning to our generation today. I being included. Listen, I'm going to read this again. That was good. I'm going to go back up here. Throughout his reign, Hezekiah devoted himself mainly to the task of dispelling the ignorance of the Torah, which his father had caused. While Ahaz had forbidden the study of the law, Hezekiah's orders read, "Who does not occupy himself with the Torah renders himself subject to the death penalty." The academies closed under Ahaz were kept open day and night under Hezekiah. The king himself supplied the oil needed for illuminating purposes. Gradually, under this system, a generation grew up so well trained that one could search from the land of Dan even to Beersheba and not find a single ignoramus. The very women and the children, both boys and girls, knew the laws of clean and unclean. By way of rewarding his piety, Yahuwah granted Hezekiah a brilliant victory over Sennacherib. This Assyrian king, who had conquered the whole world, equipped an army against Hezekiah like unto which there is none, unless it be the army of the 4 kings whom Abraham routed, or the army to be raised by Yahuwah. I'm sorry. Hold on. That's a misprint right there. The Assyrian king, who had conquered the whole world, equipped an army against Hezekiah, like unto which there is none, unless it be the army of the 4 kings whom Abraham routed, or the army to be raised by Gog and Magog in the Messianic time. Sennacherib's army consisted of more than 2.5 million horsemen, among them 45,000 princes sitting in chariots and surrounded by their paramours, by 80,000 armor-clad soldiers and 60,000 swordmen. The camp extended over a space of 400 parasangs. Remember, 4 parasangs is equal to about 4 miles. 1 parasang is equal to about 400 miles. The camp extended over a space of 400 parasangs, and the saddled beasts standing neck to neck form a line 40 parasangs long. The host was divided into 4 divisions. After the first of them had passed the Jordan, it was well nigh dry, for the soldiers had all slaked their thirst with the water of the river. The second division found nothing to quench their thirst except the water gathered under the hoofs of the horses. The third division was forced to dig wells, and when the 4th division crossed the Jordan, they kicked up great clouds of dust. With this vast army, Sennacherib hastened onward in accordance with the disclosure of the astrologers, who warned him that he would fail in his object of capturing Jerusalem if he arrived there later than the day set by them. His journey, having lasted but 1 day instead of 10, as he had expected, he rested at Nob. A raised platform was there erected for Sennacherib, whence he could view Jerusalem. On first beholding the Judean capital, the Assyrian king exclaimed, "What is this Jerusalem? The city for whose sake I gathered together my whole army, for whose sake I first conquered all other lands? Is it not smaller and weaker than all the cities of the nations I subdued with my strong hand?" He stretched himself and shook his head and waved his hand contemptuously toward the Temple Mount and the sanctuary crowning it. When his warriors urged him to make his attack upon Jerusalem, he bade them take their ease for 1 night and be prepared to storm the city the next day. It seemed no great undertaking. Each warrior would but have to pick up as much mortar from the wall as it is needed to seal a letter, and the whole city would disappear. But Sennacherib made the mistake of not proceeding directly to the attack upon the city. If he had made the assault at once, it would have been successful, for the sin of Saul against the priest at Nob had not yet been wholly expiated. On that very day, it was fully atoned for. And the following night, which was the Passover night, when Hezekiah and the people began to sing the Hallel Psalms, the giant host was annihilated. The archangel Gabriel, sent by Yahuwah to ripen the fruits of the field, was charged to address himself to the task of making away with the Assyrians, and he fulfilled his mission so well that all of the millions of the army, Sennacherib alone, was saved with his two sons, his son-in-law Nebuchadnezzar and Nebuzaradan. The death of the Assyrians happened when the angel permitted them to hear the song of the celestials. Their souls were burnt, though their garments remained intact. Such an end was too good for Sennacherib. To him, a disgraceful death was a portion. On his flight away from Jerusalem, he met a divine apparition in the guise of an old man. He questioned Sennacherib as to what he would say to the kings allied with him in reply to their inquiry about the fate of their sons at Jerusalem. Sennacherib confessed his dread of a meeting with those kings. The old man advised him to have his hair cut off, which would change his appearance beyond recognition. Sennacherib assented, and his advisors sent him to a house in the vicinity to fetch a pair of shears. Here he found some people. Here he found some people, angels in disguise, busying themselves with a hand mill. They promised to give him the shears, provided he ground a measure of grain for them. So it grew late and dark by the time Sennacherib returned to the old man, and he had to procure a light before his hair could be cut. As he fanned the fire into a flame, a spark flew into his beard and singed it, and he had to sacrifice his beard as well as his hair. On his return to Assyria, Sennacherib found a plank, which he worshipped as an idol because it was part of the ark that had saved Noah from the deluge. He found that he would sacrifice his sons to this idol if he prospered in his next ventures. But his sons heard his vows, and they killed their father and fled to Kardu, where they released the Hebrew captives confined there in great numbers. With these, they marched to Jerusalem and became proselytes there. The famous scholars Shemaiah and Abbatalon were the descendants of the two sons of Sennacherib. Where we at? Okay, so we'll read this next section. We have 52 minutes, and then we'll pause, and we'll pick up tomorrow with Manasseh. Okay, miracles wrought for Hezekiah. The destruction of the Assyrian host delivered Hezekiah from an inner as well as an outer enemy, for he had opponents in Jerusalem, among them the high priest Shebna. Shebna had a more numerous following in the city than the king himself, and they and their leader had favored peace with Sennacherib. Supported by Joah, another influential personage, Shebna had fastened a letter to a dart and shot the dart into the Assyrian camp. The contents of the letter were, "We and the whole people of Israel wish to conclude peace with thee, but Hezekiah and Isaiah will not permit it." So also when we get to the book of Isaiah, we know some of this story is actually found in there. Well, some of it is chopped up and placed in there, while a lot of the other details were left out, right? Okay. Shebna's influence was so powerful that Hezekiah began to show signs of yielding. Had it not been for the prophet Isaiah, the king would have submitted to Sennacherib's demands. Shebna's treachery and his other sins did not go unpunished. When he and his band of adherents left Jerusalem to join the Assyrians, the angel Gabriel closed the gate as soon as Shebna had passed beyond it, and so he was separated from his followers. To the inquiry of Sennacherib about the many sympathizers he had written of, he could give no reply, but that they had changed their mind. The Assyrian king thought Shebna made sport of him. He therefore ordered his attendants to bore a hole through his heels, tie him to the tail of a horse by them, and spur the horse on to run until Shebna was dragged to death. Oh my gosh. Imagine being tortured like that. They poked holes in the heels of your feet, put ropes through them, tied them to horses, and kept beating the horses till they dragged you to death. Oh, whew. The unexpected victory won by Hezekiah over the Assyrians to whom the kingdom of Samaria had fallen a prey, but a short time before, showed how wrong they had been who had mocked at Hezekiah for his frugal ways. A king whose meal consisted of a handful of vegetables could hardly be called a dignified ruler. They had said these critics would have gladly seen his kingdom pass into the hands of Pekah, the king of Samaria, whose dessert, to speak of nothing else, consisted of 40 Siam young pigeons. In view of all the wonders Yahuwah had done for him, it was unpardonable that Hezekiah did not feel himself prompted at least to sing a song of praise to Yahuwah. Indeed, when the prophet Isaiah urged him to it, he refused, saying that the study of the Torah, to which he devoted himself with assiduous zeal, was a substitute for direct expression of gratitude. Besides, he thought Yahuwah's miracles would become known to the world without action on his part in such ways as these. After the destruction of the Assyrian army, when the Jews searched the abandoned camps, they found Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and the Ethiopian king Tirhakah. These kings had hastened to the aid of Hezekiah, and the Assyrians had taken them captive and clapped them in irons, in which they were languishing when the Hebrews came upon them. Liberated by Hezekiah, the two rulers returned to their respective realms, spreading the report of greatness of Yahuwah everywhere. And again, all the vassal troops in Sennacherib's army, set free by Hezekiah, accepted the Hebrew faith, and on their way home, they proclaimed the kingdom of Yahuwah in Egypt and in many other lands. By failing in gratitude, Hezekiah lost a great opportunity. The divine plan had been to make Hezekiah the Messiah, and Sennacherib was to be Gog and Magog. Justice opposed this plan, addressing Yahuwah thus: O Lord of the world, David, King of Israel, who sang so many songs and hymns of praise to thee, him thou did not make Messiah. And now thou wilt confer the distinction upon Hezekiah, who has no word of praise for thee, in spite of the manifold wonders thou hast wrought for him. Then the earth appeared before Yahuwah and said, Lord of the world, I will sing thee a song in the place of this righteous man. Make him to be the Messiah. And the earth forthwith intoned a song of praise. Likewise spake the Prince of the world, Lord of the world, do the will of this righteous man. But a voice from heaven announced, This is my secret, this is my secret. And again, when the prophet exclaimed sorrowfully, Woe is me, how long, O Lord, how long? The voice replied, The time of the Messiah will arrive when the treacherous dealers and the treacherous, that's repeated twice. Okay, I just had to make sure I wasn't reading that wrong. Hold on. But a voice from heaven announced, This is my secret, this is my secret. And again, when the prophet exclaimed sorrowfully, Woe is me, how long, O Lord, how long? The voice replied, The time of the Messiah will arrive when the treacherous dealers and the treacherous dealers shall have come. The sin committed by Hezekiah asleep. The sin committed by Hezekiah asleep, he had to atone for awake. If he refused to devote a song of praise to Yahuwah for his escape from the Assyrian peril, he could not refrain from doing it after his recovery from the dangerous sickness that befell him. This sickness was a punishment for another sin besides ingratitude. He had peeled off the gold from the temple and sent it to the king of the Assyrians. Therefore, the disease that afflicted him caused his skin to peel off. Remember, Yahuwah, measure for measure. I just saw your comment, Aliyah. Keep that. Oh, look. Hold on. Okay. He had peeled off the gold from the temple and sent it to the king of the Assyrians. Therefore, the disease that afflicted him caused his skin to peel off. Moreover, this malady of Hezekiah's was brought upon him by Yahuwah to afford an opportunity for the king and the prophet Isaiah to come close to each other. The two had a dispute on the point of etiquette. The king adduced as a precedent the action of Elijah, who went to show himself unto Ahab, and demanded that Isaiah too should appear before him. The prophet, on the other hand, modeled his conduct after Elisha's, who permitted the kings of Israel and Judah and Edom to come to him. But Yahuwah settled the dispute by afflicting Hezekiah with sickness, and then he bade Isaiah to go to the king and pay the visit due to the sick. The prophet did the bidding of Yahuwah. When he appeared in the presence of the ailing king, he said, "Set thine house in order, for thou wilt die in this world and not live in the next," a fate which Hezekiah incurred because he failed to take unto himself a wife and bring forth posterity. The king's defense that he had preferred a celibate life because he had seen in the Holy Spirit that was destined to have impious children, the prophet did not consider valid. Hold on, let me go again. The king's defense that he had preferred a celibate's life because he had seen in the Holy Spirit that he was destined to have impious children, the prophet did not consider valid. He rebutted it with the words, Why dost thou concern thyself with the secrets of the All-Merciful? Thou hast but to do thy duty. Yahuwah will do whatever pleases him. Thereupon Hezekiah asked the daughter of the prophet in marriage, saying, Perchance my marriage joined to thine will cause my children to be virtuous. But Isaiah rejected the proposal of marriage. Sorry, y'all. I got to answer this call. It's a business call. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Good morning. This is Pamela.
Hi, Pamela. This is Janae with JB Hunt and Kimball. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I am good. Hey, I wanted to touch base. We had a driver that was set to deliver to you all this morning to VMI in Chesapeake.
Yeah.
He is broken down and is at a shop waiting to be repaired. As of right now, we don't have any ETAs, but as soon as I get more information from him, I will make sure to give you a call back to get rescheduled.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Sorry, y'all. Duty calls. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I had to take that because I knew a truck was coming to the warehouse this morning. Okay. But Isaiah rejected the proposal of marriage because he knew that the decree of Yahuwah ordaining the king's death was unalterable, whereupon the king, thou son of thus has it been transmitted to me from the house of my ancestor. Even if a sharp sword rests at the very throat of a man, he may yet not refrain from uttering a prayer for mercy. And the king was right. Though death had been decreed against him, his prayer averted it. In his prayer, he supplicated Yahuwah to keep him alive for the sake of the merits of his ancestors, who had built the temple and brought many proselytes into the Hebrew fold, for the sake of his own merits. For he said, I searched out all the 248 members of my body which thou didst give me, and I found none which I had used in a matter contrary to thy will. His prayer was heard. Remember, we talked about being chastity? Boy, I tell you, if you get yourself in trouble, you can cry out to Yah if you've been chased. You can hold it up. Look, I have not used my members to dishonor you in any way. I kept them all in order. At least for that, grant me some mercy, O most holy, right? I'm going to read that again. Look, and the king was right. Though death had been decreed against him, his prayer averted it. In his prayer, he supplicated to Yahuwah to keep him alive for the sake of the merits of his ancestors, who had built the temple and brought many proselytes into the Hebrew fold, and for the sake of his own merits. For he said, I searched out all the 248 members of my body, which thou did give me, and I found none which I have used in a manner contrary to thy will. His prayer was heard. Yahuwah added 15 years to his life, but he made him understand very clearly that he owed the mercy solely to the merits of David and not at all to his own. Okay. Well, if y'all doing stuff and you have been chased, add the merits of the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob to it, just to kind of make sure. But keep yourself in order, y'all. Don't go off doing stuff thinking, I'm gonna just repent about this, but I gotta go ahead and see this thing through. Don't do that, because y'all may not have 15 years added to y'all life. Y'all might find a grave today, right? Okay. His prayer was heard. Yahuwah added 15 years to his life, but he made him understand very clearly that he owed the mercy solely to the merits of David and not at all to his own, as Hezekiah fondly believed. Before Isaiah left the court of the palace, Yahuwah instructed him to return to the king and announce his recovery to him. Isaiah feared lest Hezekiah should place little trust in his words, as he had but a short while before predicted his swiftly approaching end. But Yahuwah reassured the prophet. In his modesty and piety, the king will arbor no doubt derogatory to the prophet's trustworthiness. The remedy employed by Isaiah, a cake of figs applied to the boil, increased the wonder of Hezekiah's recovery, for it was apt to aggravate the malady rather than alleviate it. A number of miracles besides were connected with the recovery of Hezekiah. It's in itself, it was remarkable as being the first case of recovery on record. Previously, illness had been inevitably followed by death. Before he had fallen sick, Hezekiah himself had implored Yahuwah to change this order of nature. He held that sickness followed by restoration to health would induce men to do penance. Yahuwah had replied, "Thou art right. The new order shall be begun with thee." Furthermore, the day of Hezekiah's recovery was marked by the great miracle that the sun shone 10 hours longer than its appointed time. The remotest lands were amazed thereat, and Baladan, the ruler of Babylon, was prompted by it to send an embassy to Hezekiah, which was to carry his felicitations to the Hebrew king upon his recovery. Baladan, it should be said by the way, was not the real king of Babylon. The throne was occupied by his father, whose face had changed into that of a dog. Therefore, the son had to administer the affairs of state, and he was known by his father's name as well as his own. This Baladan was in the habit of dining at noon, and then he took a nap until 3 o'clock of the afternoon. On the day of Hezekiah's recovery, when he awoke from his sleep and saw the sun overhead, he was on the point of having his guards executed because he thought that they had permitted him to sleep a whole afternoon and the night following it. He desisted only when he was informed of Hezekiah's miraculous recovery and realized that the God of Hezekiah was greater than his own God, the sun. He at once set about sending greetings to the Hebrew king. His letter read as follows: "Peace be with thee, Hezekiah. Peace with this great God, and peace with Jerusalem." After the letter was dispatched, it occurred to Baladan that it had not been composed properly. Mention of Hezekiah had been made before mention of Yahuwah. He had the messengers called back and ordered another letter to be written, in which the oversight was made good. As a reward for his punctiliousness, for fixing his mistake of recognizing Hezekiah before Yahuwah. As a reward for fixing his mistake, I'm going to just change it to that because I think I screwed that word all up. As a reward for fixing his mistake, 3 of his descendants, Nebuchadnezzar, Evil Merodach, and Belshazzar, were appointed by Yahuwah to be world monarchs. Yahuwah said, "Thou didst arise from thy throne and did take 3 steps to do me honor by having thy letter rewritten. Therefore, I will grant thee 3 descendants who shall be known from one end of the world to the other." Right? Yahuwah does good to the those who are worthy and those who are unworthy. But Yahuwah never allows a good deed to go unnoticed. And even this wicked king, he granted him 3 descendants whose name would be known all through the world. We know of them names today, right? The embassy sent to the Babylonian monarch was an act of homage to Yahuwah for his miracle-working power. Hezekiah, however, took it to be an act of homage toward himself, and it had the effect of making him arrogant. Not only did he eat and drink with the heathen who made up the embassy, but also in his haughtiness of mind, he displayed before them all the treasures which he had captured from Sennacherib and many other curiosities besides, among them magnetic iron, a particular sort of ivory, and honey as solid as stone. What was worse, he had his wife partake of the meal in honor of the embassy, and most heinous crime of all, he opened the holy ark, and pointing to the tables of the law within it, he said to the heathen, with the help of these, we undertake wars and win victories. Remember this part they put in there. They didn't give the detail like this, but Isaiah came there talking about King Hezekiah, what you doing, man? He said, oh, I've been taking the Babylonian king, his servants all through here, showing him all the good things and how we run our kingdom. And Isaiah said to Hezekiah, O king, why do such a foolish thing, right? And we know what happened, okay? After Yahuwah had added 15 years to his life, mind you. Listen, what was worse, he had his wife partake of the meal in honor of the embassy, and most heinous crime of all, he opened the holy ark, and pointing to the tables of law within it, he said to the heathen, with the help of these, we undertake wars and win victories. Yahuwah sent Isaiah to reproach Hezekiah for these acts. The king, instead of confessing his wrong at once, answered the prophet haughtily. Then Isaiah announced to him that the treasures taken from Sennacherib would revert to Babylon at some time in the future, and his descendants, Daniel and the 3 companions of Daniel, would serve the Babylonian ruler as eunuchs. Despite his pride in this case, Hezekiah was one of the most pious kings of Judah. Especially, he is deserving of praise for his efforts to have Hebrew literature put into writing. For it was Hezekiah who had copies made of the books of Isaiah, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, and Proverbs. On the other hand, he had concealed the books containing medical remedies. Great was the mourning over him at his death. No less than 60,000 men with bared shoulders marched before his bier, and rarer distinction still, a scroll of the law was laid upon his bier, for it was said, he who rests in this bier has fulfilled all ordained in this book. He was buried next to David and Solomon. And that is where we end today, my beautiful people. That was Legends of the Jews, page 461, all the way to page 465. We'll pick this up tomorrow with Manasseh. And remember, we started off reading 2 Samuel 10, 11, and 12. It is Monday, April the 5th, 2021, day 119 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 788, 788. Remember, that is without the Sabbath days and the feast days, Sabbath days added in. Why? Because we rest on those days as Yahuwah has commanded. We take one day and we rest. So in all that we do, we're trying to keep all his commands in the best way we know how in our day, right? So it ain't going to kill us to rest. Matter of fact, we're revived and we're rejuvenated when we do that, right? We have been given 6 days to work. Take one, rest. Just go sleep. Go to sleep. Right? Okay, so let's do the blessing. And then I'll double check and see if anybody asks me questions. I've seen some things popping up, but I wanted to kind of go ahead and get through the reading today because I did a long intro explaining about why I did the video 3 Days of Darkness, right? And y'all, when I did that video, I had no clue that it was going to have as many views. Like, it is literally over from when I checked it this morning when I got up, it was over 11,000 views. Now, when I did it, I was like, Father, because I felt like I needed to say something. I was like, I'm gonna make this video simply because I have personal experience with this. I was like, so I'm gonna record this because I want to help some people out because I see them wigging out like I was wigging out, right? So I'm just like, okay, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do this. I say, and Father, whoever needs to see this, may you bring it to them, right? And I was like, there you have it. I said, I did it. I labeled it so it could be found, and I put the tags in a tag box. It blew my mind because I barely ever cracked 50 views ever. These last 3 years, shucks, the last 3 years that I've been reading through this, and since 2014, since I've been up here, I never had that many views for anything. So I'm like, Father, clearly this was carried by you because it's over 11,000 views, and clearly you want people to know that these shenanigans need to stop. People about during there having heart attacks because of false prophecies and dreams and stuff that people are having. Well, let me read the blessing. So those of you all that need to get to work can go ahead. Now I want to say a couple more things real quick, and I'll check the questions. And the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. I remember the first 21 verses of Numbers chapter 6 is the Nazarite vow. Remember, a man or woman can take the Nazarite vow, right? Okay. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, May Yahuwah bless us and keep us. May Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. May Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name, whose name? Yahuwah's name. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Okay, beautiful people. So, but yeah, so like I said, if you join in after I did the intro for the why I did the 3 days of darkness video, just go all the way back. It's at the very beginning, and it's like the first 23 minutes where I'm explaining why I did that. And I go through and I explain why it was a false prophecy and how it was being carried on and stuff. And I even go through and I explain the principle of groupthink and on how when there is this idea being pushed, especially if it's really like radical and it catches on and it gets you stirred up on your emotions, it spreads like wildfire. And if you are taken in by it, it causes you to be bereft of your good common sense, like you completely lose it all and you caught up and you become super overly emotional, right? And what happens is, let me, and a lot of people, they think, let me watch my hand signals. I'm not throwing up. I did it again, y'all. Apparently it's this because I went back and looked, and apparently this is a Luciferian hand signal, right? But I talk a lot with my hands, and since somebody said it, somebody called me a Luciferian. I'm like, oh shoot, what? Let me pay attention to my hand signals. But I talk. Forgive me, y'all. I'm not throwing up any devil signals and stuff. Just in case you're new, I'm sorry. I'm kind of animated sometimes, and I use my hands a lot when I talk. So forgive me if I do. Just know I ain't calling up conjuring Satan or nothing, right? Okay. So, but here's what I wanted to say earlier. When people start having dreams about stuff, about this thing, is because, for one, they've been exposed to this lie. And what happens is, think about this principle. If you watch a movie, a scary movie, or something that it touches you, or it does something to your inside, deep down in your shanana or your spirit, if something like that catches you, it grabs you, you tend to start dreaming about it, right? And that's what happens with this. When people hear about this, it's such a radical and such a terrifying thing. It's almost like you've been entrapped by a horror movie and you can't shake it out of your head. That's what's happening. That's why people are having dreams and they're thinking, oh, Yahuwah has given me this dream. But you can see this principle clearly if you just watch a regular scary movie, right? So that's what's happening. That's why people are having these dreams. They've heard it because before they start having dreams about this, they never heard about it before. It wasn't until they was exposed to it to where they started having dreams about this and prophecies about this, right? That's why you have to be careful about what goes in here and what comes in here. These are literally gates, windows, and entrances to your soul. What you see and what you hear will affect you either for the good or for the bad. So you have to be on guard against those things, right? Okay, so like I said, clearly Yahuwah is trying to get people attention. I don't know. It could have just been the title, people searching, but I would venture to say that I think Yahuwah really did push this out, because I didn't do anything to get the views, simply because of the fact I've done 3 other videos this year that had the title in it, 3 Days of Darkness, when we were actually reading it from Exodus. Those videos, they didn't, I don't, as of this point, unless people started going back and watching them in the last couple of days, none of them videos cracked 50 views. If I remember correctly, none of those videos have cracked 50 views, right? So it was this video specifically. I was like, Father, I know this thing to be a lie, and I know this thing like give people a heart attack if they let this thing run rampant with their soul. I said, I gotta do something. I said, I'm gonna just go up here, I'm gonna tell the truth, I'm gonna give all the resources, I'm gonna put it out here, I'm gonna take my time, and I'm gonna type it out, I'm gonna put it in the description box, I'm gonna pin it in the comments, and I'm gonna explain it, and we're gonna read it together all the way through, because I know sometimes some people, they don't have time to go read, they don't have time to go look it up, but if you got time to listen, you can hear it. And when you do have time to go check, and when you do have time to go check, you can go pull it up, right? So that's why I did that, beautiful people. So okay, so enough about that. Let me just see if y'all answered any kind of questions. Okay, nothing really here on Facebook. Joy Risings. Okay, I'll go out there real quick. You did, Tootie?
Yep.
Oh, Joanne, you got taken back too. She said 3 or 4 years ago. Boy, it was crazy, won't it? It's, man, I'm just like, look, we can't do this anymore. We come out of yes, baby girl. We come out of fear-mongering places to gain our good common sense back and self-control. Because also, that was another point I wanted to make. What you'll find out, listen, when you get caught up in these fear-mongering things, it paralyzes you, and you can't move and do anything. Like, you literally stop interacting with the world because you think, oh my gosh, Jesus is coming back any day, and let me just stop standing here watching him while you still got to pay your rent, you still got to do all this, your children. Yes, baby girl.
This.
Yes, but not in that order. You got to take the plastic off of that. Bring it here. Bring it here.
I do it.
Okay, go ahead. You got it. But it immobilizes you and it paralyzes you, and you can't do anything. That fear is so debilitating that it literally can cause your family and everything to go into shambles, right? And that's another way of control, mind you, for different people who want to rule over you. And these people tend to, once they get control of your mind, like, you should give nobody control of your mind at all. Yahuwah gave everybody individual minds whereby we are different. We have different personalities. We're all colorful, whatever, with different colors, everything. He did that on purpose. Yahuwah is a God of variety. He loves variety, right? Listen. And so even, something I brought up in the video, whereby you can tell things that are kind of like false.
I have to press this, and this.
Yes. Things are false prophecies when you constantly get the same word verbatim from different people. That's how you could tell this 3 days of darkness, because it's coming verbatim. And what would happen, like, nobody is giving extra details about this. They're literally keeping this same almost word for word from this original false prophecy and false dream back in the 1700s. There's really no derivation from it at all, right? But we can see, if we go back and we learn and we read about Yahuwah and his character, when he gives his prophets dreams, he never gives them the same dream, never in the same order, but it's always giving, sit it in just like this. But it's always telling them the same principle, the same thing, but he conveys it in different ways, right? Think about Pharaoh, who had a couple different dreams, or Daniel, who had a couple different dreams, or whatever. And somebody came, when Pharaoh couldn't interpret his dream, he called for the prophets and the astrologers and all that. They couldn't do it. When Joseph finally came, he said, King or Pharaoh, these dreams are one and the same. They mean the same thing. All they were completely different. Wait a minute, Bella. Although they were completely different, they were still the same dream, but Yahuwah gave it to them in different avenues. So when you learn about Yahuwah, that's why I can boldly sit and say, why some people saying, well, sister, Yahuwah can do anything he want to do. Don't be so Or don't be so confident, or just wait. The time ain't over. I'm sitting here. I just laugh a little inside. I really do, because I'm like, you all are still caught up in the fear mongering and tactics. And I try to be patient with people because I was there, right? I was there, and I understand it. So that's why I'm patient, and I'll take my time into explaining. Some people think I may go overboard, you just saying too much, but no, because I wish somebody had said too much before I almost darn near had a heart attack with some of the things that I was led to believe. I wish somebody would have taken the time, like, sis, wait a minute. Let me show you something. But look, you ain't gotta believe, but let me just show you something. Let me give you a little bit more information than you probably have right now. And then you still decide whether you want to do this. But at least you will have more information. You won't just have it from one side. So that's what I try to do, right? I try to help people regain your mind back, right? It's yours. It's yours. It belongs to you. It don't belong to anybody else. No one should control it but you, right? All right, y'all. So that's it. Baby girl trying to pop popcorn. All right, y'all. So that's gonna be it for today. I love y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and end this so we can get about our day. So that was it. I done said enough. I know I didn't get through all the comments, but we gotta go. I love y'all. I see y'all back here tomorrow morning, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bruce. Hold on, baby girl. I'm coming. I'm gonna fix it. Hold on.